So, I was first introduced to the concept of DID or dissociative identity disorder, probably with the movie Sybil, starring Sally Field. She was in it was all the different alters coming out at different times. And then a little bit later on, it was a little bit more lighthearted in of United States of Terror, starring Tony Collette, which was Showtime. Really fun series, but his mom had alters that would come in and would be on full display interacting in this world. And we got to see it visually. But this is the first time I think I ever saw it in real life.
Only apply that. Get it, don't be timid when you in it, apply that. Love upon it, give along, need it. I don't want no trip.
My name is Ashley, and this is My Sweet Perspective, where I give my take on all things TV and movie related, and I am here to put you on. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. If you're new here, my name is Ashley, and this is My Sweet Perspective, where I give my take on all the things TV and movie related. Y'all know I'm here to put you on. Back to talk We Are Jeni, the two-part docuseries that premiered, I believe, on May 7th on Investigation Discovery, HBO Max, and available. Both episodes are out to watch. And y'all, this one threw me for a loop. It was unexpected. I believe I had just stopped watching 90 Day Fiancé, the brand new season, and this autoplayed. And I was like, okay, what's on here? And immediately I was enthralled. This is a story of Dr. Jeni Haynes, who suffered terrible at the hand of her father. And honestly, let me add, trigger warning, CSA, other, like, this is super heavy content. And so before you watch it, I want you to kind of that knowing, set that right there. But this is the story of Dr. Haynes, Jeni, who has over 2,500 altars that she created in order to protect herself during 14 years of terror. And honestly, a whole lifetime of terror, if you want to be honest about it. We about the course and how long it really took to find justice from being an innocent child, not really knowing what's happening, to going to school to pursue and understand, why am I the way that I am? Why did X, Y, or Z happen to me? Why do I have these alters? And can I ever get justice? And I think this is her quest to really find that out. And it's documented. I believe over the course of 10 years, we go through with an investigator to attempt to get her justice. But the story is varied. So I want to cover the facts and I want to be honorable to the story. And so if I'm reading a little bit, that's just my notes. But yeah, let it and drop it in the comments. Were you aware of her story? Because again, this was the first time I've ever heard of it. And it was landmark and groundbreaking because it was the first time, I believe, not just in Australia, but in the world, where a person with alters, whose alters actually testified during trial, were able to obtain a conviction from someone. So this was landmark. This is pioneering. This is something totally different. And also, I want to talk about it because a lot of times when we hear about dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder, as it used to be called, a lot of people will be like, oh, they're faking, they're this. But I guess getting a deeper understanding around how this happens and why it happens, I think it'll open some people's minds to the reality of what trauma can do in a brain before it's fully formed, right? When you suffer chronic trauma, I think they said between the ages of 6 and 9, it room for dissociative identity disorders later on in life. Schizophrenia, can sometimes be triggered by things. I'm not a mental health professional. I read, okay? But keep that in mind. But we are going to go through this. And so we start out and we meet Jeni, who's now an adult, who now I believe she's got a bachelor's, a master's, her PhD. Now, of course, she is Dr. Jeni Haynes, and she starts by recounting her life and her childhood. And she was born in England in 1969 to Haynes, right? And her mother. And I'm not even going to honor her mama with a name at this point because I was so infuriated while hearing the story that I can't even be. I have literally this much tolerance for mothers who don't protect their children. It's not the one to have the conversation or debate with about that. So I listen. Anyway, her and her mama's husband, her father, biological father, and he moves them to Australia, which in effect isolates mom from all of her family, all of her friends there in London. And so they're in 1974, they moved to Sydney, Australia. And at this point, when Jeni is 4 years old, this is when everything begins. When they have them separated, isolated, when his reign of terror begins in Australia. And it starts out with her animals and monster at the end of my bed. And for 14 years, she says, she violated by her father multiple times a day, not just with beatings and whoopings, but with SA as well. And she tried to wrap her head around it until mom actually divorces dad. And finally, she gets away and she goes to school and she pursues her life and doesn't really do anything with that. And I guess that would be hard to reconcile. My mom stayed with him for at least those 14 years. I've gone on with my life. I'm 26 now. I'm in school. Living my life and trying to put that behind me. Well, allegations come out that the father, Richard, has committed crimes against someone in London. And so now he's on trial for crimes against this other person. So this actually empowers her in this moment to say, hey, this happened to me. I remember it. So I'm going to go to the Australian authorities and see if I can get my charges added onto that case in London so he can pay for that, right? Because I think in her mind at this point, 26 years old, a lot of times even bearing the trauma in your 20s, you can be very optimistic, right? And she says in the docuseries that I thought, he get punished for his crimes. He'll go, be rehabilitated. He can come back into society and it'll be something different. So she piggybacks this original case and goes trial and everything. And he's ultimately convicted for the one set of charges that the other person is charging him with. But he completely abjectly denies any involvement with the daughter. She's done or he's done to her X, Y, or Z. So that really doesn't fare for her. But she says, listen, he went to jail. It's, rehabilitated. And she makes the wild decision. And I don't even judge her for this because kids will love even a bad parent. Honestly, she says that she just wanted a normal father. And so she sends him a letter while he's in jail for these crimes. And she wants to start this father daughter bond in this moment. And she says for a good long while, it lasted and it worked. So much so that when he was set to be released, she wanted him to parole to Australia so that they could be friends, they could be family, come and be a proper father. She said it lasted just for a short amount of time before he accosts her again. And so immediately she goes, she rescinds the order with the government. And apparently he had lied to the government anyway about having a felony conviction. And so ultimately they deport him back to London and everything's separate now, right? But now it's like, okay, he hasn't changed at all, which predators don't change, baby. And I hate that she had to get that lesson in real time. And I think it's going to be easy for people to judge her in that moment. But I really would hope that we can approach this with some empathy and some care because, like I said, when trauma happens chronically at such a young age, it alters your brain chemistry. And what we think is, neurotypical as far as thought is not present there. It's not. And so now, after all of this time and him being back in London, I need to make sure that he pays. He's not changed. He's not ever going to change. And I need to get justice. And so now we get into full on her story and everything's happened to her because we need to see if, first of all, the Australian authorities will help her proceed with whatever this case is going to look like going forward. And so this is when we start this 10-year course of investigation, of psychiatric evaluations, of medical evaluations, because to be honest with you, the damage that was done to her young self had lasting damage, right? And so she's had to have surgeries to correct certain things. And like I said, trigger warning for injuries affecting her eyesight, her jaw, her bowels, her coccyx, anything you can imagine. This baby was being brutalized. And so we're pulling this evidence together. We're working with the authorities and she's asked the question, well, where was your mother exactly? And she's like, that's a good question. Where was my mother? And we find out they say mom was in a deep depression and she didn't see any of the signs. Your baby is literally broken can you not, depression or not, how can you not see that? I can't let it off. And again, like I said, I'm not a person to have empathy there. I'll have to pray about that because I just don't understand how you could let your child be brutalized in this manner and not take any action. But they say because she was being abused herself, because she was in depression, she did nothing. And so anyway, enter our investigator. So she goes to the Australian police with a 900,000, or excuse me, a 90,000 word victim statement because it is a condition within dissociative identity disorder. I believe it is called hyperthymesia. If I'm mispronouncing that, let me know. But hyperthymesia is basically the ability for total recall, right? So if any of the alters pop up, like we had Symphony, who was 4 years old, who was really the conductor of this symphony of all of these alters that would step forward and could recall and remember all of the things, all of the heinous acts that were performed. And so she gives this 90,000 word victim statement that was total recall. And so immediately the authorities are like, aren't necessarily going to buy this or understand this. And so then they had to start getting doctors and the science of it involved. And this is actually a real thing. It's perfect autobiographical memory. It's its own rare condition. They said fewer than 100 documented cases worldwide, combined dissociative identity disorder. The alters acted like a distributed hard drive, each holding different pieces of the memory. And so when testifying, each alter could come forward and recount everything that happened. Anyway, the police end up believing her. We go back to her original childhood home, which was hard to watch as she recalls the things that happened in each of the rooms in the house. And so we get here, the police are on her side. But again, it took 10 years to literally get enough to present to the authorities to actually make way for another trial. So eventually, and I believe this was just in 2017, where we get enough evidence to actually bring charges against Richard Haynes. And so we get there and testimony begins and she's recounting everything. And when she brings out this sock puppet, he recoils. Immediately his plea goes from not guilty to guilty and he wants a plea bargain. And so, they go from 300 charges to like 90 to like 40. And she's like, listen, at this point, I just need him to be charged and put away with something. And so really, because of the heinous nature of everything, this was not a jury trial. This was a bench trial with a judge and Judge Sarah Huggett. And it was really unknown what was going to happen because, again, we had bartered at this point. He pled guilty. How much time is he going to get? And thank God the judge saw everything. Judge Sarah Huggett said, hell nah, Richard, you're in jail and you're going to be in there. There's coming out, baby, at your big age already. And I believe they gave her 45 years, which was essentially a life sentence, being his age when he was at the time. Again, this was groundbreaking because of the fact that, again, no one with D had successfully won a conviction against anyone, especially with their alters testifying on the stand. It was the first of its kind, which is shocking over all of these years because honestly, DID really is only ever present in those who have suffered chronic trauma over an extended period of time. It's a coping mechanism in some way where come out in effort to protect the you experiencing the things that are happening to you in real time. But I love how advanced we are now getting with this and how we have verbiage and language around what's happening. Again, DID is not something new. But the fact that now it can be recognized and someone can actually get vindication for the heinous crimes that were committed against them. Again, just mental health in general is always so stigmatized. And so this was really interesting just to see finally justice served at this point. This was super, super done. I think this was from the viewpoint of the victim, of course. She was very present in this docuseries and you felt it, right? And And I think it gave us a window into the mind of someone who is dealing with DID and what the that you can create as a result of that. Because now I can advocate. Now I can come from a place of experience and how educated she became around who she is and what made her into the person that she was. But anyway, you guys, I'm long-winded on this one, but let me know if you've watched it. Let me know if you knew anything about Dr. Jeni Haynes and her story. I'm very interested to know. Please be sure to like, comments if you are here for the documentary content. Let me know also. And if you have any recommended docs that I haven't seen, drop them in the comments and we can come and talk about them. We definitely can. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, Sweet Pea rating. As docs are concerned, I would give this a strong 4 out of 5 Sweet Peas. This was very strong. It was compelling to me. Like I said, I didn't even intend on watching it. It just popped up and I had to finish it. But you guys drop it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and I will see y'all in the next video.